Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Rock and Roll DENIM's 2023 NFR pre-show. We've got Rodeo's finest and guest. We're going to go through some of the NFR contestants this year, hear their story, what they're doing to get ready, because it's going to be a really good NFR. So put on your Rock and Roll Denims, sit back, and listen to the greats, old son.
So you've been rolling a bunch?
Yeah. Doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah.
You been doing some?
I've never done jiu-jitsu just because of my knee.
Yeah.
But, like, wrestling growing up, like, I think I would just wreck me. Like, I would love going back into that world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I loved wrestling growing up. Like, I had 7 D1 offers to go wrestle, and I had one junior college asked me to come rodeo. My rodeo offer.
But you haven't done jiu-jitsu.
I haven't. But, like, you know, like in high school, like I was in the wrestling room at 5:30 every morning. I have a 2-hour workout, shower at 7:30, go to class at 8, and then we had a 3-hour workout at night. Like, I loved the grind.
Yeah.
Of, like, just banging heads all day. And,
right.
like, I mean, like, jiu-jitsu, obviously, and wrestling are two opposites because you don't go for a submissive position, but, like, the manipulation of somebody else's body to make them do what you want. I feel like I think you would be able to pick up the transition from one to the other just because you've rolled on a mat before, in a way.
Yeah, it's so much of a chess game.
Yeah,
or I've never wrestled.
I could be completely wrong in that aspect.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I barely know anything about jiu-jitsu. I don't know anything about wrestling. Only I have picked up on how much of a chess game it is.
And that was like wrestling.
And I'm not good at chess either. So
yeah, like the thing about wrestling, like thinking back to that, was like you would either grab somebody or you would feint enough to get someone playing off your movement to get them weight on like a foot or like a certain side that you want to where they couldn't pick that foot up quick enough before you would shoot, or like you would go to a tie standing up and you would you jockey for position and head position until you got them where they knew like you couldn't sprawl back, and then you would go to your shot and work your offense type stuff.
How much of a crossover is there between like wrestling and bareback riding?
Oh, I think it's like a perfect crossover, truthfully, because like you have wrestling where it's a one-on-one sport where like what I loved about that, like I didn't like team sports because like I just wanted to put blame on myself if things didn't go correctly. Like, because in a wrestling match, like what you do in that 6-minute time period, or if you go into overtime, it's 100% on you. If you didn't get your offense going, that's because you just didn't execute your game plan. Like, and then you let them execute their game plan on you, and which put you in a defensive mode. And if a really good wrestler, like when you see high level wrestling, a lot of times they don't know defense because they only work offense. Now, when you see the very best in the world, they're executing both because they know how, you know, the fine line between their offense and your offense, and like being able to scramble would put you back into your offense. Where like in rodeo and bareback riding, like it's just a fight. Mm-hmm. When you climb in there and you rack it around and nod your head, like you're in for the fight. And like that's how I approached a wrestling match. Like, this is a fight. We just don't throw hands.
Yeah.
But like, and that was the mental aspect that I took into bareback riding, in being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and being willing to go into, you know, deep waters, and, you know, especially like eliminators. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you're outmatched and outgunned, but like, how much do you want to be in this fight? And like wrestling and like the grind of wrestling, and when you don't want to do it anymore, but you know, like, you don't know when the practice is going to end, but you're just grinding, and you go through the grind of that day in and day out. It helps you get over the hump of not the fear factor, but like, this does not feel good, but like, I got one more in me. Yeah. Like the biggest thing that I can relate that to, like back in like the biggest situation that I ever got put in, is when I got on Killer Bee.
Yeah.
And every jump, you were so high in the air and you were feeling all this incredible power that I've never felt on any other animal. And the drop was so hard, but you were up there and it was so long. And it was like when you're in sync with an animal, like you can almost feel emotion and feel things running through your heads.
Right.
Like I felt as we came around the corner, like he was saying or she was saying to me, you can get off now or we can go another one. And like every time, like I felt that drop and I was like, go one more. Don't give it up. Just get in the fight. Go one more. And then the next one, I was like, you're still here. Just fight one more jump. Get another jump in you. Like it was a jump by jump. It wasn't a second by second in that ride. And like, I do feel like my wrestling background helped me make that conscious decision every jump, stay in the fight.
Man, it's crazy that you illustrated that. We were rolling the other day, and I was watching one of our guys that it's all the interns that work for me. You know, they get on bulls or broncs. I don't have any bareback riders right now, but and so in the mornings we'll roll, and our instructor's in there, and I'm watching him across the mats, and he is like just relentless and will not quit. And then the other day we were in the practice pen, and he got in a little bit of a bind on this bronc and kind of checked out. And we got a rule in the practice pen that if you do look off, like you don't get to get on another one, that you got to live with it. Yeah. And you know, wait till the next week or the next practice. Like you got to soak in that. And, you know, but anyway, like I haven't explained this to him, but dude, you have this never die mentality because he's a wrestler. He's a former wrestler. And now he's doing jiu-jitsu with us. It's like, man, you've got to connect those two. You have the ability to never quit, like you're talking about, go one more. But bronc riding is so foreign to him, it's so new to him that he hasn't really fully realized how to apply it. And the few times I have had bareback riders in that arena, I explained to them, like, of all the events, this is the one where I think bareback riding will make a liar out of somebody quicker than the others. Like you can't not fight on a bareback horse ever. Like I feel like you have to take 100% of the fight every single bareback horse, whether it's a hopper or an eliminator.
I agree with that. One thing that I've like soul searched on and like thought back and like what I've noticed more before like stepping back and looking at it, like when you see a bareback rider, like when they're shapping up and grabbing their riggins and going to the buck and shoot, especially at a high level, right? Or any level, because the switch gets flipped and you can look into that person's eyes and you can tell their soul. Like you see the mean streak in a bareback rider, you see the fight in them. You can like, you're in such a irrational thought of mine. I call it the primal state of being. Like you can really see that in a bareback rider because the fight has to be there. Like it is a live or die situation. Like unfortunately, the death got really brought to our front doorstep this year with Trenton. It hit so close to home, but like we all know that's the dangers of this. When you rack it around in there and nod your head, like you're in. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just, pull the tail.
There ain't no kinda.
And you can't stand in your stirrups and check out. Like there's really no good way to check out on a bareback horse. Like you're either going to check out and hit the ground real hard, and one of the worst things you can do is try to double grab in a storm too. Like you're in such a awkward position usually when you're in a bad way on a bareback horse that if you do go two hands down, you usually get jerked down.
Yeah.
And like, so the fight aspect has to be there. Like you said, hopper, that's a 16-point nice little thing, or killer bee. Like the fight has to be there every time you get in there. And like that primal state of being, you really see that in bareback riders about 15 minutes before they get on, and some can shut it off a little sooner than others. I have a harder time like dialing it back in. I've gotten better at it, but like, like I gotten the, they say I'm probably one of the most intense rodeo athletes, but when I turn it, like I let those emotions run because that's who I want to be in that situation. That's who I personally want to be when I'm going to go into that fight.
So I know that you mean everything you're saying because, watching the sport and over the last decade, how many NFRs? What is this?
This would be my 10th in a row.
10th NFR. And is it 4 gold buckles?
3.
3 gold buckles. Going into your 10th NFR. One of the things about, rough stock, any event, but is not only being able to go to the level of fight you need to compete, but being able to do that every single one. So the consistency, because you're going to go to – how many rodeos you go to this year? 60?
Probably 60.
Yeah,
Got on at 60 rodeos.
Right. So you got to do that 60 times.
And that's not to mention the tournaments.
Right.
Like, Houston, that's 7 head. A lot of them rodeos, they call it 60 rodeos you compete at, but a lot of these rodeos are moving to tournaments. A lot of them are moving to short rounds. Like, you're probably getting on 110, 100 at least.
So you've got to go to that level of fight that many times. And the ones that are able to do it consistently, wind up in the top 15. And you've done that 10 years in a row. Is there any sort of like one-liner piece of advice that you tell yourself, a motivational statement that you always come back to, maybe?
Yeah, like, so I have my ritual of what I do. And I pray a lot before I get on. Usually if a group wants to pray before we go out, like I'll just use the NFR as an example. Like we play, or when Tom comes in to tell us that the horses are loaded, we shut the music off, and as a group in a room, we pray together. And that's like step 1. And then they hit Thunderstruck, and we all start getting ready with Thunderstruck rolling. We walk out, and I find my horse, and I put my rigging on him. And then I pray over my horse. I put a hand on my horse, and I talk with the horse and the animal, and I have a prayer for that as well, just talking about protection. And, I'm thankful most of all that I get to do this. Not whether it's the NFR or a small little rodeo or a practice pin. It's the same deal. Like I have a ritual of that, not a ritual, but I want to pray with my animal as well. But at the NFR too, once I get done with that, the outgate, I like to stand in the middle and kind of look around and kind of take in where I'm at every night. And then there's the right corner right at the outgate, and I go to the right corner, and I like to grab some dirt and kind of rub it on my hands a little bit, and I just like to talk myself with God. And then then I'm really starting, things are really starting to motor out at that point. And then once we, get done pulling and it's game time, I tell myself every time, it only takes everything you got.
Yeah.
Like when you...
That's the line I was talking about.
Yep.
That's the one.
Like once I get through that and I get to that state of mind, that is the one line that always comes back to me. It only takes everything you got.
Yeah. How's your year shaped up so far?
It's been really good. Like the winter was a little tough. I tore my groin off my pelvis in Denver. Mm-hmm. So like I dealt with that all winter. And then I went to Tijuana and got stem cell injections, and it really helped me. Like it let everything kind of relax and kind of scarred it down. And then once that got healed, like we came into the summer and things from the 4th of July on just started rolling. And, at one point I told my wife, I was like, I'm about $65,000 behind Leighton, who just cleaned up the whole winter run. Mm-hmm. I was like, I think it's going to be hard to catch him until Vegas. And so my goal was to narrow that gap down. Mm-hmm. And so like I had like a riding goal for like competition, knowing that it's just you and an animal. You can only control your situation with your animal. It is not me versus Leighton or me versus Jess or me versus Casey. But like my outside goal was like try to cut that lead down, try to get as close to the number 1 guy in the world as possible. And that goal ended up shaping up to where I ended up passing Leighton.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Keenan just went and destroyed the regular season earnings record, too, and we're $100,000 behind him. But, my goal at the beginning of the year was met with huge exceeding. I thought if I could get within $10,000 of him, I was going to be like, that's a good job.
You bet.
But then I ended up passing him, going in 4th place, like $1,500 outside of 2nd place.
See, I noticed that. I'd forgotten about the hip injury, the groin injury, and I was looking at the standings the other day, and it was just like, oh, yeah, Tim's up there again, and it's crazy to think that, you had that kind of setback but are still able to be in the top 5.
Yeah. There was a point right after the American semifinals where I got eliminated. I had a hard horse too, but I was so frustrated with how the winter was going because of how much I was fighting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had a real conversation with my wife and Sean Scott about scrapping the year, and going and getting multiple surgeries done and coming back in 20 like I haven't had an ACL on my right knee since 2017.
Yeah,
my free arm shoulder got kind of tore up at 2020's NFR, and I've used a Sully brace to kind of stabilize that. But I was like, man, maybe I should just scrap this and take a year, come back, and then, really diving into stem cell therapy. I went that route, and I am so thankful that I did.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it. Has there been any big changes? Like, I love the way you described bareback riding, and I love the way that you described your mentality going into a bareback ride. They're doing construction on the bathrooms in there. I don't know that that's going to change all day. But anyway, over the last 10 years, have there been any significant changes mentality-wise that like epiphanies that you've had, or has that been your mindset since the beginning?
No, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of subtle changes that I've made. The caliber of horses have really changed from first NFR to this NFR. Like, the pin is completely different. Horses that we took at our first NFR, I don't even know that would go to our circuit finals anymore.
Dang.
I mean, these contractors have really exceeded expectations with the Born to Buck program.
Yeah.
And these horses are bigger, faster, stronger. And so that changed how I had to prepare myself for these animals as well. Like, after my first NFR, like, I hired a personal trainer because I realized that I got bedded down 3 times at the national finals, that, like, I'm not actually big enough to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of the last 10 years, I went from 140 pounds to 165. And I have to maintain that weight. That's like my perfect bareback fighting weight. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's been a big change. The style has changed. Like, I've said this, like, looking back, because, like, the quote unquote storyline this year is the year of the rookie in the bareback riding. There's 5 rookies going to the NFR. And one of them, obviously, like, Keenan has shattered the earnings record. Cade Saunier, who traveled with me this year, he's going in third. And then there's Jaco Roper, and, like, there's a really, and I don't mean to leave any of the other rookies out, but there's a real kind of cool concept. Like, there's me that has 10 NFR qualifications, and Clayton that's got 9, and Oren that's got 9, and then it kind of, like, dives off, and you go into, like, this newer aged quote unquote veterans, where you have Jess and Cole Reiner and Leighton at, like, 4 and 3, but, like, they're going to be the face of bareback riding for the next 15 years. Like, and then there's these young kids, 5 first timers, and, like, even Rocker at 2,
right?
Like, real young. Like, there's just a really different dynamic of where the sport is going to. It's not the same old faces anymore. Mm-hmm. And, like, now you have Fields retiring, who finished 16th.
Yeah, that was a big hit to the bareback riding world.
It really was. And that's where I was going with this. Like, when I started getting on bareback horses in 2010, Casey won his first world title. So, like, I really watched what he was doing at 18 years old, and, like, this is what bareback riding needs to look like. This is what your style needs to kind of form out. Like, keep your style, but, like, this is what they like.
Right.
So, like, I worked off that. And then in 2016, I won my first world title. Mm-hmm. And when you think about these young kids, like, I only know this because Jaco has it tattooed on his stomach, but he was born in 2001.
Dang.
He was 9 years old watching this. And Cade, same way, 8, 9 years old watching Casey Fields start this. So, like, just like any other sport, like football or baseball, like, they spent their whole childhood being able to get ready with this form. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what they practice. So, like, when they're at 18, 19 years old, they're ready.
Yeah.
Where me, I didn't make my first finals until I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
Like, they're just ready so much quicker now because they've adapted this new form of style. They're adapted to these bigger, stronger horses. Like, that's just what they know. They didn't have to go through a chapter turning of, like, this is what horses looked like. This is what the horses were kind of known for, mm-hmm. to what we really expect of real true bucking horse to be like.
Yeah. How long have you been with rock and roll?
I've been with rock and roll since it was 2016. It was 2000. It was actually early 2017 is when I signed with rock and roll, and it's been one of the best decisions that I've made.
Yeah. So what do you wear when you're riding?
I wear a stretchable denim.
Yeah, the Reflex.
The Reflex. Side note, they talk about like equal rights between men and women. Women have had this and have kept it from us for decades.
Right.
And that's so unfair. That's not equal rights.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, that Reflex denim is an absolute game changer.
I don't know what it would be like to step into some normal, like, it'd be like when I was wearing FRs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if I stepped into normal denim.
Yeah, like what you have to do on the back of a bucking horse, like when I wore normal denim, I would usually rip the inseam out
For sure.
of jeans real easy. But like them Reflexes, they just do what you want. And I had to wear like really big sizes of jeans before too. Like you're basically doing the splits in the air. And if you didn't, like I was wearing at one point like a 34, 36 and I'm a 30, 32. Like they were just,
that's huge.
it was like a parachute on my legs.
Exactly.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. I the first time I really came across the first person I can remember doing that was Will Lowe. Like he would have on these baggy pants, but now you can wear just normal pants that fit.
Yeah.
So, thanks to rock and roll denim. Well, are you getting on a lot of practice horses?
I'm going to. So I approach like my ready process now in October. Like I kept all my gear in my rodeo truck because I knew I wasn't going to get in my rodeo truck. Like October, I really need my mind to just go away from rodeo and refocus on my family now that I'm home and just, take care of the most important thing.
Right.
And that's being a dad and being a husband. So I take October all away from rodeo. The only thing that I do is I get back in the gym every day.
You bet.
And then from there, like now that we're in November, I start moving into working out in the morning, technique practice at night with the spur boards. And once I've like really knocked the rust off on a spur board, we are going to like the 20th of November, we're going to go to Freedom, Oklahoma, and we call it the NFR practice. It'll be me, Jess, Oren, Cole Reiner, and a couple other guys that make the finals. And we all get together and they just run between my brother, who is Championship Pro Rodeo, and he's Stewart, which is Frontier Rodeo. We go to the Frontier Ranch and they run anything we want in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like getting on the best horse. You drew the best horse at the rodeo, but we're going to do this for free.
Yeah.
And like we really get the sense of the feel and the timing and like the horses that we're going to get on at the finals versus like, like last year coming off a thumb surgery and the year before having my tailbone removed, like 100 days, both were like 100 days right before the first round. Like I had to get on horses to like make sure this felt correct.
Right.
And, I was getting on horses that like I would probably turn out at a rodeo, like weaker caliber horses that like don't have real good timing, that don't really play with the style that I want to bring forth. And like things felt so off. Then when we went to the Frontier Ranch last year, getting on horses that like I got on Night Fist, which I've been dreaming to draw at a rodeo. I just got on it for practice.
Dang.
And like you can do things that you're normal. Things just feel right again. So, and being older now, being 32, like I got to take care of my body more than I did when I was in my mid 20s. So like, especially watching this groin injury this year, like I haven't got on the spur board as much as I normally have, but when I have got on it, like things just picked up real quick for me.
Yeah.
So, and I think for me, another learning process that I've learned is I've probably done too much in the past. Like I've almost put too much, I've overthought it. I've overdid things. I've overtrained muscles moving into the finals where like I was trying to nitpick things because I wasn't having any negative feedback because I was just ready and I still had 2 weeks to go.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like I know the things that I need to work on and I can mentally change those things without actually having to run my body into the ground. And I don't really need to get on a crazy amount of practice horses especially when we're going to get on really good horses, and like things will just boom, 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 boom.
You bet. Yeah. Well, love that mentality, love that thought process, and it's always a pleasure to see you at the Rock and Roll Denim NFR pre-show, because this time that we have today is one where all the NFR endorsees get to come together, and you are always one of them when we come film here. So it's no surprise that your mentality matches that same consistency. So it's been a pleasure. We look forward to watching you, and go kill it this year, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
On to the next one.
Pow, pow.